Today's video is sponsored by BetterHelp. So lately I've been taking an inventory about me as a person, who I am, and what can I do to personally get better. And as part of that process, I've discovered 10 things that people hate about me.
10 things I hate about you.
And I really want to talk to you guys about it, so let's do it. Probably first and most often cited is, yes, I am not your normal farmer. As a lot of the haters out there would say, how can you consider me a farmer? I just have some birds and a guard dog. And on the surface, I would say I get why people would say that. You know, the model I have for farming and the way I approach farming is completely unconventional and not the usual approach. I started my farm with ducks. I then got really into raising geese. Most of the farm income that we have here comes from really 3 different things. Number 1, selling hatching eggs. Number 2, selling live birds. And then number 3, selling tree seedlings, which might actually end up being the biggest and most lucrative part of our farm business this year. I don't come from a farming family. I don't have an agricultural background. I was just a guy who got kind of fed up with city life, got kind of fed up with what I was doing for work, and I wanted to try to make a positive impact on this world. And so I decided to try to start a farm that could be sustainable economically and actually turn a good profit for the farmer, something that would be sustainable environmentally and be good for the land and restore the land. And then it could be something that's sustainable educationally, and that it shows other people other ways of approaching agriculture that they might not have thought of. And by mixing and matching my unconventional methods with the unconventional methods of other people, with the unconventional methods of people like you maybe watching this video, we actually build something better together. And that, my friends, does not look like your average farm. That doesn't look like your average farm that typically is a dairy farm around here in my area. It doesn't look like a big crop farm like you have in the Midwest. It doesn't look like what you might have even in the conventional small farm orthodoxy of a farmer who raises meat for a farmer's market, or somebody who does like market gardens for vegetables. Not that I think that there's anything wrong with any of those approaches. I think they're great for a lot of different people, but they're not what I wanted to try to do. And so I'm doing things a bit different, and people really hate that. I still very much consider myself a novice farmer. I have a whole heck of a lot I need to learn. But to me, that's all part of the process. But I think that that makes some people uncomfortable, and I think that that's what generates some of the hate. Item number 2 on the list is that I am a natural-born marketer. I am somebody who believes in marketing. I am somebody who, throughout my entire career, has always focused on marketing. When I started this farm, I started this YouTube channel at the same darn time to document my experience and show people what's going on, so that as I had farm products to sell, I'd have an audience that would be willing to buy those farm products. And to be honest, I understand why that approach rubs a lot of people the wrong way. In the earliest stages, it can definitely feel like more talk than action. To people who think that animal management or crop production are the main parts of farming and sales and marketing really aren't the domain of the farmer, that can make a guy like me seem like a big old doo-doo merchant. And I know that that garners a fair amount of hate. And I think for me, if I was, say, in my teens or in my 20s, I would have really struggled with that criticism, and I really would have tried to look the part or try to be what people expected you to be. But I think that that's maybe one of the beauties of growing older. The older that you get, you stop focusing so much on what other people think about you, and then you focus much more on what you believe. And I believe that telling people stories and bringing things to life for folks is an important part of what happens on a farm. And so I embrace it wholeheartedly, even though I know it cheeses off a lot of people. Number 3 on my list is that I am wicked emotional. It happens in so many different ways that I think it drives people nuts. I'm emotional in that I get so passionate about things that I can bowl other people over. I'm emotional because I can care so much about something like an animal and start weeping openly when I start to think about certain animals. I get too emotional because I really focus in on the lives and the personality of my animals, which for some people is kind of upsetting. And I know that that can drive people nuts. But again, that's very much who I am, and I just accept who I am at this point. And that's probably a good segue for me to take a moment to just talk about today's video sponsor, BetterHelp. You know, part of the way I've become so at peace with reasons that other people hate me is because I've done a lot of work up in here in this part of the noggin. And I've spent time in my life where I've gone to therapy. And I have found that things like therapy make a huge difference, which is why I'm a fan of BetterHelp.
BetterHelp will assess your needs and match you with your own licensed professional therapist. You can start communicating within 48 hours. It's not a crisis line, it's not self-help. It is professional therapy done online securely. There is a broad range of expertise in BetterHelp's 20,000 plus therapist network, which may not be locally available in many areas. The service is available for clients worldwide, and you can log into your account anytime and send a message to your therapist. You'll get timely and thoughtful responses, plus you can schedule weekly video or phone sessions, so you won't ever have to sit in an uncomfortable waiting room as with traditional therapy. BetterHelp is committed to facilitating great therapeutic matches so that they can make it easy and free to change therapists if needed. It's more affordable than traditional offline therapy. BetterHelp wants you to start living a happier life today. Visit betterhelp.com/goldshawfarm. That's BetterHelp, H-E-L-P, and join the over 1 million people taking charge of their mental health with the help of an experienced professional.
All right, so back to my little personal inventory here that I have. And number 4 is actually something that was discovered for me going through the therapy process. And that's actually the fact that I have ADHD, so attention deficit hyperactive disorder or something along those lines. While it was something that I've struggled with my entire life, it wasn't something that was diagnosed when I was a kid or a teenager. And really it wasn't until I was in my mid-20s that I actually found out that I had this problem, like on a diagnosis, like clinical level. And I started learning about different ways and things that I could do to actually manage my issues. It's not easy, and I struggle with it all the time, but I do think it's gotten better over the years as I've worked on it. But that does not mean that some of my ADHD behaviors do not drive some people crazy. And in fact, if you were to ask someone like my wife, Allison, what does she hate most about me? That might be up there at the top of the list, that I can be so hyper-focused on one thing and completely ignore all other things around me, that I can't pay attention enough to some things that she might be talking about, that I really struggle from getting distracted by any little shiny object that might move my way. I know she and other loved ones absolutely despise that about me, so it does make the list. Number 5 on the list is actually also something that's very connected to number 4 on the list, and that is that I am wicked disorganized. I am constantly losing things, I'm constantly misplacing things, I'm sloppy, I'm messy. If you look around this farm, I feel like I've worked so hard to get it like semi-organized and have it like somewhat in good shape. Like if you look at my workshop right now, it's way better and more organized than it was, say, a year ago, but it's still very often in a state of disarray, and I need to do a better job, and I'm constantly working on projects, leaving stuff up on the table, and then having to go back later and resort everything, and I never seem to get around to doing that part of the process. Again, I'm better than before. Like, look, fence posts to help keep the cattle in. But if you ask my wife about what one of her least favorite things about me would be, behind my ADHD brain, my disorganization would be definitely number 2. And by the way, don't even get started on the state of my office or my bedroom closet. Yeah, that's pretty wicked embarrassing, and I do deserve the hate on that one. Number 6 on my list is really like the third leg of my life is chaos stool. And specifically, it's that I'm really hard to get in touch with. I know I have so many comments from all of you guys that go unanswered, direct messages that I haven't even looked at, emails that I always forget to respond to, phone calls I never answer, text messages that I'd never get back on. Like if I took an honest inventory of it, I will say it's pretty sad how horrible I am at getting back to people. And I know that that leads to a lot of damaged relationships and hurt feelings, and it's completely not intentional. I just struggle with doing it, and part of me doesn't even quite know why. I think I just get overwhelmed with it all. Like I just get so much stress and anxiety by having to respond to stuff that sometimes I just freeze up and don't do it and move on to the next thing. And I know people hate that about me. I've tried to get better. I've tried to institute systems to improve around that, and I'm just not making all that much progress, to be quite honest. I guess all I can say is to the folks that I have disappointed with that one and let down, I understand your frustration, I understand your anger, and I'm sorry, and I will try to keep getting better, even though that probably at this point just sounds like an empty, hollow promise. It's not meant to be such. I genuinely feel bad about the fact that I'm so hard to get in touch with, and I know that it does damage relationships, and well, I'm working on it. Hey geese, get off that mulch pile, huh? Yeah, Toby, you gotta create some order here, buddy. So I've been doing my fall mulching of the barnyard here. I've used the tractor actually to unload most of the mulch. I just gotta spread it around more. I try to do this twice a year where I just put some fresh mulch down on the area that's really the heaviest trafficked areas by the birds. It keeps the ground cleaner and reduces risks of disease for them, so it's kind of important. Okay, sorry, don't mean to get distracted by the birds. Number 7 on my list is probably a surprising one, given the fact that I'm so often documenting what's happening and putting up so much content on various social media sites. And that specifically is, I want to tell you that I am an introvert.
You liar!
I know, it seems crazy for someone like me, given that I'm always so talkative and I'm always out there and I'm always putting stuff out there. But to make a very honest confession to you all, I really don't like to be with people that much, surprisingly. Like, I love being with my wife, Allison. I'm gonna keep her in one category. And then I've got a handful of very close friends and family that I'm always happy to spend time with. But beyond that, I generally prefer to be alone. As many commenters on our videos are often gonna say, this guy never shuts up. But when it comes down to it, I don't mind talking at all. I actually find talking to be a very enjoyable thing, and I love talking to you guys and telling you guys stories and sharing what's going on with the farm. But you gotta realize, when I'm shooting 90% of my videos, it's usually just me and this guy and the barn cats and the birds, and that's it. Like, I'd actually be very curious to see, like, if you go back and look at all my videos where, you know, people like Allison or my buddy Alfred or other friends show up in videos, it's a relatively small percentage, and the vast majority are usually just me and a bunch of animals. And to be quite honest, that's because I'm in my happy place here. Like, there is nothing I like to do better than just wander this farm talking to you guys and talking to the animals and working on projects and building things and fixing things and dreaming about things. And those are all exceptionally solitary activities, and that's because I am very much an introvert. Now, I fully acknowledge that the pandemic over the last whatever number of months has created a ton of suffering, whether it's loss of family members and loved ones, difficult to overcome illness, sacrifices, social distancing, all of that stuff. But for an introvert like me, it's, you know, maybe had a couple of things where I've been bummed that I haven't been able to see certain friends and loved ones. But other than that, I don't have a lot of gripes. And I know that that's coming from a point of extreme privilege to be able to say that, both in terms of my personality type and socialization preferences, but also recognizing that not everybody has the luxury of working from home and sequestering themselves off on a beautiful farm in northern Vermont. But that introvert status can drive some people nuts, and it can actually very much disappoint people. You know, I often find that when folks like you watching our videos actually meet me in person, you're generally kind of underwhelmed because I'm sort of quiet, I'm sort of shy, and I don't have much to say, and I'm wretched when it comes to small talk. I'm actually very appreciative that when I meet people, they're usually the ones doing most of the talking. And so maybe saying that people hate me because I'm an introvert is a little bit strong, but it definitely doesn't foster good feelings about me. That's for dang sure. Now, number 8 on my list is that I am overconfident. It drives people nuts all the time that I'm very sure of myself. I very much think I usually have the right answer. When I was younger, people would often say that I was addicted to being right and I was overly self-assured, and that was 100% true. I've been really trying to work on this one over the years and be more humble and be more willing to acknowledge that I don't have all the answers and not let my overconfidence bowl people over and create space for doubt for folks. But admittedly, I still very much struggle with it. And when people meet me in person and when people work with me on stuff, that overconfidence can drive them insane. You guys look at this. Toby and Jenny are starting to play with each other. Now for number 9, I want to stop and see a show of viewer hands. Just take a moment and put your hand up as you're watching this video. How many of you, when you heard me talk about the pandemic a moment ago, were compelled to scrawl out some sort of comment saying it was a scam, or that you're disappointed in me for buying into a hoax, or any one of the other myriad of comments that I've received over the last, I don't know, 20 or so months? Look, I get it. You and I probably don't see eye to eye on that thing, We probably don't see eye to eye on other things. There are probably some things that we see eye to eye on, because one of the things that I get probably more hate mail on than anything else are some of my political viewpoints. And you know, I really try hard not to make my content or anything that I'm putting out overly political. I fully recognize that I'm gonna believe what I believe and other people are gonna believe what they believe, and that's totally okay, and we can totally find some sort of middle ground. But man, some people have a hard time with that. And yes, every so often, a point of view that is rooted in a divisive political issue can rear its head. Over the years that I've been making videos, I've received criticism from people for being a capitalist and having capitalist points of view. I've also received a lot of crap from folks because I've had some very strong libertarian points of view. There's a fair amount of people out there who take umbrage with some of my points of view around animals and the environment. And then there's some people who will absolutely call me a dang commie socialist. And I gotta say, guys, my views are my views. I believe that I can believe what I want. I believe you can believe what you want. But I will tell you, dear viewers, there are many people who have issue with that concept, which I have to admit to me is kind of sad. I mean, why can't we just let somebody believe something that is counter to what we believe? Why can't we let them go about their way and do what they want to do? Why can't we let them go their way and we go ours? Why do we have to impose our point of view as the only correct point of view? I would tell you, if there was one thing I wish people could take away from me and my political points of view, it's that I believe that there is actually no truly absolute correct political point of view. But I know that that's living in a dream world, and so people often hate me for my political points of view. Now that you've heard the first 9 things that people hate about me, you know, there's a lot of other candidates that come up that could have made the list, and some would argue should have made the list. Probably one of the biggest that should have made the list, but I didn't include on the list until I'm thinking about it just at this moment, is that I am a person who, over the course of my career, has amassed enough wealth and income that I could afford to buy a farm like this in cash. That definitely cheeses a lot of folks off. You know, the fact that I'm a guy who grew up in the suburbs and then ended up living in cities for most of his adult life really annoys a lot of more rural folks. I ain't real country, y'all. Not that I ever really claimed to be, but I guess, sure. People get really mad at Allison and me when we talk about being a married couple who does not want to have kids. A whole lot of people think I'm a yuppie or call me a yuppie, and I guess maybe I am a yuppie. I don't even know what a yuppie is. Can someone explain that one down in the comments? So all of those were worthy candidates, but I opted not to include them because I was trying to be, I guess, more self-reflective and recognize the things I can control versus the things I can't control, but that's probably a whole other video. Now, the last item on my list is admittedly probably the hardest and most uncomfortable for me to talk about, but it goes like this. I get a lot of hate because I'm fat. I know, right? That's like wicked uncomfortable to bring up. Like, look, ever since I was a little kid, I was a portly little kid. I've had times in my life where I've gotten into great shape, or at least great shape for me, relatively speaking. And I've had times in my life where I've let myself go a bit and eaten the wrong things and slacked off when it came to exercise. And when I get comments and emails from people hating on me for my weight, or even comments and message from people telling me I just need to lose weight, and they might even think they're coming from a nice place, but it's really not that helpful, and it's really not that nice if you unpack it. It happens quite a lot. In fact, more than you might even think. Geese, come on, I'm trying to have an emotional moment here. But again, at this point in my life, I'm pretty much at peace with who I am and what I am and how I am. I really do try my best to take good care of myself and make sure I'm exercising and making sure I'm eating right, but it ain't easy for me. It's unfortunate to me that struggle becomes a point of criticism and hate, but it is the truth. So I hope you guys have enjoyed learning about this list of 10 things that people hate about me. I have to admit that I've found this entire process to be surprisingly therapeutic. I am somebody who does believe in relentless self-improvement and continuing to work on myself and continuing to make myself better. And stepping back like this and taking an inventory was surprisingly helpful. I would be very curious to see what other people's lists about the 10 things that people hate about them look like. And so if you want to share it on social media, use the hashtag 10 things people hate about me. I'll be on a lookout for it, whether it's on YouTube or TikTok or Instagram or Facebook, even on Twitter. And I'll try to do my best to comment on them, even though usually we know that I'm not very good at that. But let's see what your lists look like, guys. Thanks for watching.